What's up, everybody? Big Ant Fantasy Football back here again, talking some football today. We got a real fun matchup today with the Dallas Cowboys traveling to Detroit to take on the Lions. I'm really excited about this game. Feel pretty good about it for on terms of all the fantasy matchups that I got players going. I'm excited about what they're going to do in this spot. I'm excited for some bets we got in this game. Appreciate y'all who are going to hop on this stream. Make sure to fire off any questions you guys got in the chat. If you're watching this afterwards, leave a comment afterwards on any bets you like or any bets that you ended up hitting if you're watching this after the game. Shout out any props you're looking at, what team you're looking at, and so on. But that being said, just me for now. Yash said he might slide under the stream at some point for a bit, so might have my co-host hopping on here in a couple minutes here. But that being said, just going to get right into it. So Dallas Cowboys taking on the Detroit Lions. Over-under for this one is set at 54.5 points. Detroit is favorited by 3.5. You see 160 on the money line for Dallas, minus 162 on the money line for the Lions. And I included some of the public betting numbers just because I thought it was really interesting. As you guys can see, 75% of money is being put on the Cowboys as of right now. And I tend to want to agree with the public. We'll get into more of the data, but just a lot of things that I think the Cowboys have going for them, while the Lions are kind of trending down. We talked about it a bit on stream yesterday, but it feels like both of these teams are kind of heading in different directions right now, as unfortunate as it is for the Lions. As far as the total goes, we should see some points in this one. 54.5 points is a very high total. Not something that I would really want to bet, to be completely honest. If I had to pick a side, I would probably go the over. Just hope we get that shootout game script, which I can very easily see happening in a game like this. But just not something I'd really want to put my money on. Not really super confident on either side too. I like kind of playing it through a player props perspective rather than either side. But if I did have to pick a side, I think I would be on Dallas. But let's get into some more of these numbers. Starting with the injury report. For the Cowboys, they're relatively healthy, Tyler Guyton, starting left tackle, is out. They are still without Trayvon Diggs as well. Questionable, we got Malik Hooker, Jadeveon Clowney. But from the looks of it, I think both of those guys are going to be playing. So it seems like Tyler Guyton is really the only injury that we were kind of uncertain about. He's been ruled out. So that is definitely a big loss, especially with this Lions pass rush and Aiden Hutchinson in particular. We'll see if he can take advantage. As far as the Lions injury report goes, this is what is really concerning me for the Detroit side of things. We got Terrion Arnold out, who's out for the rest of the season after being put on IR, starting corner. Kirby Joseph, starting safety, still dealing with that nagging issue. He's going to miss another week. Sam Laporta and Brock Wright both out. So the starting and backup tight ends are out for the Lions. Khalif Raymond has also been ruled out. And as you can see here, a bunch of guys are questionable. We got Brian Branch questionable, Taylor Decker, Graham Glasnow, Panay Sewell, Amon-Ra. And then there's another Detroit lineman who's questionable, but it seems like, from what I've been gathering, it seems like all the linemen are going to play. It seems like Branch is going to play, and I don't think that Amon-Ra suits up. And if he does suit up, I think it will do so in a limited fashion. So not super bullish on that. Hope to see Amon-Ra out there, as an NFL fan, who doesn't want to see Amon-Ra out there tonight. Just make the game environment a lot more fun, I think, but does not seem like he's going to suit up with no practice these last 2 days. Next, let's get into some trends. So the Cowboys are coming into this game on a 3-game win streak, including wins over Philly and Kansas City. The other win was over Vegas. as light of a matchup as that is. The Lions, this is the big stat that we got to keep in mind if we are wanting to fade the Lions tonight, and that is that the Lions are 14-0 and 14-0 in their last 14 games after a loss. And in addition to that, they've covered the spread in 13 of those 14 games. So just something we might want to keep in mind if we are thinking about backing the Cowboys. The Lions are also a lot better at home, 4-2 at home this season. Cowboys are 2-4 on the road. So that is a factor. Both of those that the Lions got going in their fashion. But as far as Dallas goes, since they've acquired Quentin Williams, their rush defense has been very good. In total 3 games, they've given up a total of 103 total rush yards to running backs since acquiring Quentin Williams, since acquiring Logan Wilson, and also since getting their stud Demario Overshawn, who's a linebacker I'm really high on, really believe in. Since getting them back, their defense has completely changed. This is now a unit that has been suddenly shifted to a very good run-stopping defense. That you're seeing a lot of 5-man fronts out of them. But because of that commitment they're having to stopping the run, it's leaving them very susceptible to the pass, and teams have been taking advantage. I'll get a little more into those numbers too. But I don't have too much to take away from their meeting last year, just because these are such different teams than what they were last year. Obviously, Dallas has added George Pickens. They've added Quentin Williams. They've added a lot of acquisitions on their defense. Offense is just playing a lot better with Javonte Williams in the mix as well, along with Pickens. And then looking at the Lions, relatively similar team, but obviously no Ben Johnson. Likely without Amon-Ra tonight, so that is not in their favor. But in that matchup last year, the Lions shredded them. They beat them 47-9, and that one was in Dallas. Goff threw for 315 and 3 touchdowns. J-Mo went for 376 and a tug. And then Dak struggled, only 178 through the air, 2 picks, CD 7 for 89. Yo, what's up, guys? Good to see you, Frizzle. What up, CJLA? What up, Mando? Good to see you guys in here. Make sure to ask any questions you guys got in the game tonight. I'm going to get into some of my best picks for tonight if you guys hang on. Just breaking down some of the data before I get into that. Also, make sure to comment who you guys got winning this game tonight. I've kind of been going back and forth, but I think I'm ultimately leaning Cowboys. But I'm honestly, I could see it either way in this one. Let's get into this next breakdown. So now we're going to be looking at the defenses in particular. And we're going to start with the Dallas side of things because we're a fantasy football channel, right? We care about our players scoring fantasy points. So let's look at how Dallas is faring on terms of fantasy points allowed. This is a breakdown of the fantasy points they've allowed and how they rank against other opponents, or how they rank on terms of the NFL rankings. 32nd means they've given up the most points to those positions, first being that they've been the best against those positions. And as you can see on the year, you see a lot of red, particularly to quarterbacks, receivers, running backs were getting there too, especially on the road. But we see in the last 3 weeks, things have completely shifted, right? They're still struggling to pass catchers with QBs, wide receivers still having some really, really strong fantasy performances, but they've held running backs in check. Like it said on the last slide, the last 3 weeks since acquiring Quentin Williams, since acquiring Logan Wilson, held running backs to 100 rush yards combined over these last 3 weeks. And they're ranking second best on fantasy points given up to the running back position over these last 3 weeks. So that is something to keep in mind. The way I'm approaching it is I like the Lions to use Jahmyr Gibbs a bit in the receiving game tonight. I think that they're going to struggle to pound him in between the tackles. I don't think that's how they want to use him tonight. I think they might try to get him out in space, get him on the edge, maybe throw him a screen, swing pass, give him a sweep to the outside. Something like that is going to be what they're going to have to do if they want to get Gibbs involved in this one. And I do think he will get increased receiving workload with no Amon-Ra. So I think that the way I'm approaching this is more being precautious about David Montgomery rather than Gibbs tonight with this Dallas improvement versus the running backs. And I also listed some notable fantasy performances, which just kind of backs what I'm saying about Dallas being a pretty big pass funnel. Rashee Rice, 29 points against them on Thanksgiving. They've allowed quarterbacks to just go nuts against them. 3 of the last 4 quarterbacks have gone for 24 fantasy points. We've seen some big performances from wide receivers as well. And that's kind of a mix of slot wide receivers and at your traditional X's, Z's. What up, ATL? Good to see you. Yeah, Mando, Yash should be hopping on in a bit. He said he had a pretty busy day today, so he might hop on for a few minutes, but mainly just me today holding it down. Don't know how long I'll go, but just wanted to break down this game a bit for y'all. Yeah, I like this spot a lot for George Pickens. That's a good segue into the next defensive breakdown. We got the Lions on the whole season. Lions are ranking 27th worst to quarterback points given up. They are the best against running backs on the season, 30th against wide receivers, 10th against tight ends. And we look at how these numbers change at home, and they are very similar. Still giving up a lot of points to QBs and wide receivers. Still doing very well against running backs and tight ends. And more recently, these last 3 games, it is a small sample size, but in those last 3 games, they have really struggled as well against quarterbacks and wide receivers. So I don't see that trend changing tonight, especially facing this Dallas offense that has lethal pass catchers, as we know, with George Pickens, CeeDee Lamb, and also with how banged up Detroit is in the secondary, with Terrion Arnold now out, you got Kirby Joseph missing as well. I definitely can see CeeDee Lamb and Pickens having a big game. One concern I do maybe have if I'm thinking about CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens prop bets sort of thing, is that on the season, the Lions have been playing a lot of man coverage, and that's why we've seen these explosive wide receiver performance, right? I think right now the Lions are second in the NFL in man coverage rate, which just fares well for wide receivers, right? It's a high-risk, high-reward style of defense where you're giving up a lot of big plays, but you're maybe limiting some of that more like short yardage stuff. But talking about the Lions and their man coverage scheme, I wonder if we see a little bit of a different look from them tonight, knowing who they're going up against, knowing how injured they are in the secondary. I wonder if we see a little more zone out of them tonight, just trying to keep everything in front with CD Pickens. So that is something to keep in mind. I doubt the Lions will just completely shift how they do things. With how Dan Campbell likes to coach, he doesn't want to back down from anybody. So I imagine we'll still see a fair amount of man coverage tonight, but maybe just not at quite the usual clip we see from the Lions. But on paper, this should be a smash spot for both Pickens and CD. All right, so I think that concludes the defensive breakdown. And now we're going to get to best bets. I got 2 best bets for this game. And we're going to start off with CeeDee Lamb over 83.5 receiving yards. He is over this mark in 5 of 8 full games this season. And his misses were very close. So 74, 66, 75. So if you are a little worried about this 83.5 line, you're feeling it's a little high, I have no problem with bumping him down to 70 yards, bumping him down to 60 yards, and getting a little bit of that reduced payout, but adding a bit of security. Detroit, as we know, just broke down. They're averaging the 23rd, or they're really struggling against wide receivers. We just looked at fantasy points, but in terms of yardage given up, they're ranking 23rd in most yards per game given up to wide receivers. The Lions play a heavy dose of man single high safety, like I was just talking about. Could see some one-on-one opportunities for CeeDee Lamb. And if he does face man coverage, I think CD would most likely get Amik Robertson, who, if you were watching the Packers-Lions game on Thanksgiving, you saw that Christian Watson touchdown he went for on Amik. Not a cornerback matchup I think CD Lamb would struggle with at all. And then, just looking at the last couple weeks, they've really struggled against slot wide receivers as well. They just allowed a massive game to Dontavian Wicks on Thanksgiving. And the week before that, we saw what Wan'Dale Robinson did with Jameis, going for a career high in yards and just making Lions made Wan'Dale Robinson look like a top 5 wide receiver that game. So it'll be interesting to see what an actual top 5 wide receiver in CeeDee Lamb is able to do tonight. Let me know in the comments or in the chat if you guys are rocking with this CeeDee Lamb 83.5 yards lines. Let me know your guys' best bets, props you're looking at in the chat. I got one more bet for tonight, and then we're going to hop on the Underdog and kind of browse through some more lines, some leans. But these are my only 2 official bets that we're going to talk about on stream today. Also have some more props in the Discord that I sent earlier this week. We're going to get to the second bet, and that is David Montgomery under 37.5 rush yards. He is under this mark in all 3 of his last games, 58% clip on the season. We just talked about how improved the Cowboys are against running backs. The last 3 weeks, only 100 total rush yards given up combined. They're limiting running backs on the ground for sure since the acquisitions they've made and since they got Overshown back. Lions, on the other hand, are dealing with several offensive lineman injuries. I think most of the linemen suit up, but heading into the game tonight, 4 of their 5 starting O-linemen were questionable. So just something to keep in mind that this line is playing super banged up, like with how good the Dallas defensive line has looked. I doubt we see the Lions kind of beat them up front tonight as much as we kind of have come to expect that out of Detroit. I think this is a spot where Dallas will put up a pretty good fight in the trenches. And then this last point is kind of more of just like this isn't a super statistically backed point, but in a must-win game for Detroit, I am anticipating Jahmyr Gibbs to just be extremely involved. It's me and Yash have talked about this on stream before, but in a must-win game, you tend to rely on your best players, right? And I think we're going to see the Lions do that with Jahmyr Gibbs. I also think that Jahmyr Gibbs' skill set just benefits the Lions more against the schematics of what a team like Dallas wants to do. We talk about how good this interior defensive line and this linebacker room has been for Dallas these last couple weeks. That does not fare well for David Montgomery, right? We know David Montgomery's not a speed guy. He's not going to be beating guys to the outside. He gets his yardage right up the gut. And I think that he's going to struggle to get those carries today. And I don't see him going over that 37.5 rush yards mark unless he breaks a big run, which we know is possible. That is the scary thing about taking a rush yards under, especially one that is low like this. But I am on board with fading David Montgomery tonight. You can run those 2 bets that I just talked about, the David Montgomery under 37.5, the CeeDee Lamb over 80.5. Combine those. I think on Prize Picks you can get a 3x payout plus 200 for just those 2 props combined. I already locked that in. Make sure, if you guys are rocking with it, to tail that one. Bet responsibly. Let me know what you guys are thinking. We'll have one to sweat out together. But that's going to wrap up the game breakdown. Keep firing off questions. We're going to talk a little bit more about some betting props, but that is it for the official bets for the day. Mando, I hope so, man. We just talked about taking that over 83.5. I really like this spot for CD. I like it for Pickens as well. I just prefer to play it through Lamb just because I see him getting – we know CD gets more of that slot usage, and that's how – or what Detroit has struggled against more so. They're still giving up a lot of yardage to outside receivers on the year as well too. But I think the slot will be more of a beneficial spot for CD, especially facing this man coverage that we know CD Lamb kills man coverage. I need to pick up a kicker last minute. Who do you think is the best option between Butker, Matt Prater, Cam Little, or Riley Patterson? Let me look at the matchups real quick. But just off initial kicker rankings, I would probably go. My gut's telling me to go Butker here. Facing off against the Texans, it's a great defense. Kansas City may struggle to convert drives to touchdowns, have to kick a couple field goals in that one. It is in Kansas City too. Kansas City is favored to win. I think I would roll with Butker. He feels like the safest floor of all these guys too. Cam Little's not a bad option either. Yeah, let me remind me who the Jaguars are playing. I'm looking. Oh, against the Colts. All right, yeah, I might take that back and roll with Cam Little, Mando. All right. Gonna hang out for a bit longer. We're gonna pull up some underdog lines, and just kind of talk through anyone we think is interesting on this slate here tonight. Javonte Williams, haven't really talked about him. His lines have actually gone down a bit from where they were at last night, which is kind of making me regretful that I was looking at a rush yards under last night. Didn't end up pulling the trigger on that, but 65.5 is an interesting line. I don't think I feel super confident in taking it under here, but if I did have to pick a side, I would go under. The worry is that he just gets a bunch of attempts, right? We've seen Dallas this year really not get much going on the ground throughout most of the game, but they still give Javonte 15 to 18 carries. And if you give someone 15 to 18 carries, the chances are they can break off at least one long run, right? So that would be the worry with taking a Javonte Williams under in this one. Just someone I'm probably not wanting to bet on in this game. When we were looking at the defensive metrics, we saw how good Detroit is against running backs. I just prefer playing it through the receiving game. Jahmyr Gibbs, I like his receiving stuff, but I am a bit hesitant with how bumped these lines are. It feels like these lines are very sharp. 38.5 receiving yards is super high, considering Jahmyr Gibbs hasn't really gone over that line this year. But with Noah Monra, I guess the books are projecting that increased receiving workload for Gibbs. They like the matchup against the Cowboys, who have struggled with receiving yards to running backs. So I think that is why we're seeing such a bumped line for Gibbs. But something that I want to take, but it just feels like the line feels too sharp. So I don't know how much of an edge we're really getting by taking the receiving yards over. I don't mind bumping him down to like a 29.5, 24.5 if you just need something to add to the parlay. We did send something in the Discord with a Jahmyr over 24.5 receiving yards prop in there. So yeah, that's kind of how I would play it. I don't mind playing it through like a longest reception either. I could see a rush yards or maybe a longest rush too. We talk about Dallas being a little susceptible on the edge. Maybe a longest rush market for Gibbs might be a good way to get in on that. Let me actually pull that up on Outlier for y'all so we can take a peep. All right, so we got longest reception pulled up right here. Let's go to Longest rush. Okay, in 2025, Gibbs is over his longest rush line in half the games this year. So that doesn't say much. Let's look at how some other running backs have done against Dallas. Kareem Hunt with a 14-yard run. Okay, so maybe not. So since these last 3 weeks, we talked about how improved they are against running backs. Longest run they've given up these last 3 weeks is 14 yards. And the week before that was 17 to Bam Knight. So maybe I'm wrong about the Gibbs longest rush. Probably, if I am betting Jahmyr Gibbs, I probably want to play it through a touchdowns or a receiving yards, to be completely honest. Yeah, Mando, I can cook one of those up for y'all. Yeah, sure. Well, CeeDee Lamb, we talked about my boy. He was at 79.5 last night. He's bumped all the way up to 84.5. We got that one in early in the Discord. Don't mind his touchdown as well. I saw a tweet talking about how juiced all these touchdown lines are for tonight, and it's insane. I don't know if I can remember a game where there's almost 4 or 5 players that are favored or almost favored to score touchdowns. It's just kind of nuts what we're getting here tonight. But yeah, I think CeeDee Lamb touchdown's viable. Jameson Williams touchdown also super viable. The JMO lines, as much as I love this spot for him against Dallas, I do worry about how much attention he gets, especially with Noah Monra and Dallas being able to game plan for that. In this last game against the Packers, where we saw JMO excel, obviously there was Noah Monra for pretty much all that game as well. But the Packers didn't have time to game plan for that, right? They didn't know Amon-Ra was going to go down with injury in the first quarter. And now you're giving Dallas a full week to prepare for pretty much Jameson Williams and Jahmyr Gibbs in the passing game. And those are the only 2 guys you got to worry about. So I do worry about JMO getting some extra defensive attention. And I wonder how that will fare for him. Whoa, we got a guy spamming in the chat. I'm just going to get rid of that. Jameson Williams, touchdown. Kind of viable. I think if I wanted to play anything, JMO, I would do it through that. I'd probably prefer to play it that way rather than the yards. Yeah, let's add JMO touchdown for now. Why not? This is what I'm saying though. We had 2 wide receiver touchdowns and we're only not even getting a 3x. It's crazy. Longest reception, interesting for Jameson Williams too. Let's look at that one. All right, so we're gonna pull that one up on Outlier. So longest reception is actually looking pretty solid with JMO. Maybe that's the way we would want to play this. He's over in 4 of his last 5 games since he's kind of taken that step up within the offense. We know the Cowboys are giving up a lot of explosive plays through the air. We know that's pretty much what Jameson Williams just wants to do. That is probably how I would play JMO rather than his receiving yards on the whole game. But to be honest, just think there's better props out there for tonight. That's how I would be playing it if I wanted to back JMO. Touchdown or longest reception. I just realized we don't have it solely NFL. Gonna just keep skimming through some of these players for tonight. David Montgomery, we took his under at 37.5. His line's at 36.5 now. Feel great about that one. Don't even mind like bumping him up to 44.5, taking that under if you want to get frisky. Get a little extra security on that. Interesting enough, as much as I'm talking about not liking David Montgomery rush yards total, I could be interested in a David Montgomery touchdown. Getting even odds for this does not feel bad. And we have seen David Montgomery take some goal line work from Gibbs. And we know that Jahmyr Gibbs is a pretty trendy touchdown bet tonight. A good way to kind of fade the public, fade the noise could be taking a DeMont touchdown. Just an interesting way to think about it. If we look at on the season, he has scored in 5 of 12 games. So just about half of the matchups this season. High scoring affair. I don't see why DeMont can't score tonight. Something interesting. I might like DeMont touchdown more than I like Jameson Williams, to be completely honest with you. But anything else, it's a rush yards under, it's a touchdown. That's pretty much it for DeMont. We already talked about Jameson Williams. Getting to Jake Ferguson. I don't really love Big Jake tonight. Lions are just very good against tight ends. I think a touchdown is maybe the only way I'd want to play it, just because we are getting some nice plus money. Jake has been running pretty touchdown cold these last couple weeks, so you could say he's due, but I don't think. Let's see. Show you guys my thought process with Jake Ferguson here. All right, so let's pull up Jake. All right. So his fantasy score over looks like a lot of green, right? But now let's pull up touchdowns. So he scored in 5 of the 12 games this year. Detroit is doing a pretty good job of limiting tight end touchdowns. 11th best, less than half a touchdown a game given up to tight ends. Let's look at the tight ends that have scored against them. It was Ben Sinnott. Whoa, wasn't expecting to see that one. And TJ Hawkinson are the 2 tight ends we've seen score against them recently. Some pretty good tight ends, too, that haven't gotten the end zone against them. We got Theo Johnson, Dallas Goedert, Zach Ertz, but Ben Sinnott scored that game. So some pretty solid tight ends that they've done a pretty good job against. Let's look at receiving yards. Don't think this is how I want to play it, but yeah, Detroit pretty average in terms of receiving yards given up to tight ends. They've allowed a couple big plays to Theo in that one. I remember watching it. Yeah, just not someone I'm super interested in tonight. His 3.5 receptions, or he has got at least 3 receptions in pretty much every game this season. So if you really need a parlay piece, taking Jake 2.5, 3.5 is viable. But other than that, touchdown and reception is how I would want to play Jake. Excuse me. Sorry, guys. Still getting over my cold. Gonna keep talking through the players we got in the lobby. Isaac Tesla. His lines, I know we're expecting an increased workload, but man, are these lines juice. 37.5 yards. Touchdown only at 1.23x payout. Feels a little crazy to me. I cannot lie. I like Tesla just as much as the next guy, but I don't know if I'm with backing this 37.5 number. If we were getting him somewhere in the 20s, I could be interested, but just feels like the market is pretty sharp on this one. Touchdown's interesting, but not for those odds in my opinion. Just someone I'm probably going to pass on tonight. George Pickens. Similar reasons we like CeeDee Lamb, we like George Pickens. Should see a lot of man coverage. Just been an absolute dog these last couple weeks. I think longest reception is viable too. Pickens has been cashing his longest reception in pretty much every game this year. So that is certainly viable, this 27.5 longest reception line. Yeah, that's about how I'd play. I'd find playing Pickens through touchdown, receiving yards, receptions, longest receptions, even targets. You can play Pickens however you want. I like the spot for him a lot. If you're a believer in Pickens, just go with where your confidence level is. I would say my favorite of the bunch is probably the yards. Dak Prescott, 1.5 touchdowns feels very nice. 2.5 touchdowns for a 1.35x boost is also certainly interesting. If we took CeeDee Lamb off, I think that might be what I want to end up doing for the touchdown lotto Mando. Let's add CeeDee. Let's add Pickens. So we assume that doesn't even do much for the payout. Let's just assume CeeDee catches one of those 3 from Dak. Demont scores one on the other side. What's it if we add JMO? 7.4. Okay. Tesla. 8.9. Honestly, for the odds, I'm not loving these. I think running these 3 together is viable. And honestly, even taking Dak off and just running CeeDee Demont doesn't feel too bad. Still getting a little nice 2.9x. And if you don't like the Demont call, you can run CeeDee Gibbs and also get a 2x payout. I think if I had to rank my favorite anytime touchdowns tonight, I would probably rank them CeeDee, George Pickens, for the odds, David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, and then Jameson Williams. Yeah, I think this would be an interesting way to play it. I also think an interesting way to play Gibbs. We talk about thinking he needs explosives tonight, right? What if we bump up a longest rush to a 24.5, or even a longest reception to 20 yards? That could be an interesting way to play Gibbs tonight. If you're wanting to do a lotto sort of slip, rather than playing touchdowns, you can boost a longest reception, a longest rush. That might be the better way to play it, if I'm being completely honest with you. If you run Gibbs over 24.5 longest rush, CeeDee touchdown, you get a nice 4.42x. Throw in Dak, 3 touchdowns in there. That would get you to 7. Take out, see what happens if you take out CeeDee and just ran these. Yeah, 5.7 just for running these. Feels pretty solid. Again, none of these are going to be official plays, but just kind of walking through, if I were building slips, these would kind of be some things I would be thinking about. Kevontae Turpin has nice touchdown odds considering how juiced everyone else is. Luke Schoonmaker, probably not someone I would be looking at. Brandon Aubrey. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for how I'd be approaching the game tonight. Don't know if I have anything else I really want to talk about in this one. Sorry, Mando. Just don't want to force anything. Like I said, if I wanted to play a lotto sort of play, I think doing something like this, maybe like a Demont touchdown, is viable. That's maybe how I would want to play it. You could do something like this. This gets you a nice 10x right here off this. And then if you wanted to add CeeDee, yeah, it doesn't even do anything for the payout. So just like these 3, I'm kind of liking this, to be honest. All right, but not going to lock that in officially. All right, y'all. Don't think Yash is going to hop on, so I think I'm going to get out of here, but I wanted to hop on and talk some ball with y'all, show you guys my best bets for tonight. Appreciate y'all for checking the video out. Make sure to drop a like, drop a sub, join the Discord if you haven't already. We're always in there talking ball. Completely free to join. So if you're not in there, I don't know what you're doing. But thanks again, y'all. Appreciate y'all for checking out the stream. We'll probably be back on tomorrow afternoon. If not, then likely Saturday. But I'll keep y'all updated in the Discord. Just another reason to hop in the Discord for exclusive stream updates. All right, y'all. I'm going to get out of here. Good luck to your bets tonight. Appreciate y'all for checking out the stream. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.